Thanks for joining us for another MOLYKOTE Webinar. Today we'll be doing a webinar on specialty lubricants and lubricant certifications. This webinar will be presented by Cassia Hagel, who is an application specialist at DuPont. Take it away.
So first, we'll start by going over common quality and environmental certifications that are specific to MOLYKOTE. And we'll start with going over some of the ISO certifications that are held by some of the products within the MOLYKOTE portfolio. So first, we'll take a look at the hydrogen purity standard. And overall, hydrogen purity standards really vary depending on the application. And there's different specific guidelines established by different organizations. But ultimately, very generally speaking, the general hydrogen purity standards for industrial uses state that pure hydrogen, which is dictated by 99.95% or higher, is generally required specifically for processes in refining or chemical manufacturing. Additionally, hydrogen for electrolytic hydrogen production, which essentially involves hydrogen produced through water electrolysis, specifically aims for a purity of 99.999% purity, often referred to as 5 nines purity, because contaminants can really affect specific applications like fuel cell performance. And if we look at fuel cell applications, the fuel cell market really often involves hydrogen purity of at least 99.97%. But there is an additional sort of very stringent requirement placing limitations on contaminants like carbon monoxide and sulfur compounds, and also moisture. And there are different types of standards that provide guidelines for hydrogen purity, either through ASTM or ISO. We'll take a look at the ISO 14687 standard. And this is the international standard for hydrogen fuel quality. And it essentially just covers purity requirements for hydrogen that are used in applications involving fuel cells. And these standards address the chemical purity of hydrogen, often detailing acceptable levels of specific impurities, just to ensure safety and performance within those applications. And then one specific MOLYKOTE product that meets this specific hydrogen purity standard is the MOLYKOTE HP 300 grease. And this specific grease has this ISO certification. And what essentially allows it to have this certification is its chemistry, which essentially prevents hydrogen embrittlement and also resists contamination of the hydrogen as well. So next we'll look at the ISO 9001 standard, and this is essentially an international standard for quality management systems. And essentially all this, what the standard really provides is a framework for organizations to follow to ensure that they're meeting both customer and regulatory requirements. This specific standard, it's part of the ISO 9000 family, which essentially just focuses on quality management principles. So this specific certification, the ISO 9001-2015 standard, essentially emphasizes the importance of understanding and meeting customer needs, and places highlights the role of management in both establishing and implementing a very effective quality management system. It's also a standard that is a very process-oriented approach, focusing on the understanding and managing of interrelated processes in order to achieve a specific focus and effect. So the benefit of this particular standard is that it helps organizations to standardize processes and also improve the quality of the services that it's providing or the products that are being provided. It also increases efficiency by following a very process-based approach, and also really focuses on customer needs as well. So next we'll look at the high-performance multi-use grease certification. And then this particular certification can be provided by different committees, essentially, but it's essentially industry standard that ensures a very specific level of quality and performance for greases that are used in a multitude of applications, ranging from industrial applications to automotive applications, particularly in applications where you would encounter pretty extreme conditions, hence like the multi-use certification essentially. And essentially what the certification is designed to do is to provide consumers a guide in selecting high quality greases that provide very optimal performance and protection for machinery and industrial equipment. So as you can see here, there is a pretty stringent and extensive list of properties and testing that a grease must satisfy requirements for in order to actually meet this particular certification. And essentially, from a performance standpoint, the HPM greases are usually evaluated based on various types of performance, which would include stability, resistance to heat, water washout resistance, wear protection, corrosion resistance. So again, sort of characteristics that would make it more apt to more extreme sort of applications. There's also a sort of versatility aspect too in the multi-use name given, and that essentially indicates that the grease it's suitable for different types of applications, and it provides a degree of like versatility for different customers who are using a single lubricant for multiple sort of components or multiple applications. So again, the HPM greases, they're used in sort of a wide variety of applications and markets, ranging from like automotive, industrial, heavy duty equipment sort of applications where you might encounter more sort of extreme conditions. And one thing that is kind of unique about the HPM greases is they're also designed to be relatively like environmentally friendly, so to reduce environmental impact while being high performance still. So as you can see here, one of the greases of MOLYKOTE that meets this particular certification is the BR2 Plus performance grease, and this certification was issued by the NLGI group, which stands for the National Lubricating Grease Institute. So the benefit of having this grease certification is essentially the promise almost of enhanced reliability, as well as the cost effectiveness of having a grease that's multi-use, and the ability to meet compliance standards too. It's a certified product that helps companies comply with industry regulations and standards. So ultimately, this HPM grease certification, it's just a guide to provide to manufacturers and customers who are essentially seeking multi-use and high-performance lubricating greases. So next, we'll take a look at the quality certifications that are commonly held by some of the MOLYKOTE greases. So first, we'll take a look at the NSF certification. The NSF food grade certifications, they refer to standards that are set by NSF International, which is an organization that develops public health standards and certification programs in order to protect food, water, and consumer products. So certification through this particular organization, it ensures that the products with the certification are meeting very strict criteria for human safety and health and environmental protection, particularly in reference to like food grade or food related applications. So there's a couple different categories of the NSF food grade certifications that we'll look at. What's most relevant to us is the NSF 51 and the NSF 61, as well as the NSF H1 and H2 registrations. So the H1 registration essentially encompasses the food grade lubricants, so lubricants that are suitable for use in like food processing, manufacturing settings. And then the H2 certification is more broadly termed to reference industrial grades of lubricants. And then the NSF 51 and the NSF 61 certifications are more specific to food and drinking water certifications. So the 51 specifically, it's a standard for materials that are used in food equipment, and it covers all realms of like plastic, rubber, and other materials that come in contact with food during food processing or manufacturing, and just ensuring that machinery that's touching the food are essentially not contaminating these components and are safe and appropriate for food contact. And then the NSF 61 standard applies specifically to drinking water system components and essentially assures that the materials and products that are used in these processes are not leaking sort of harmful contaminants into water that could otherwise affect human health. The benefit of having these NSF certifications is, one, it helps build consumer trust, really, because you're helping the consumer build confidence in the products that are being used for settings involving food manufacturing, and giving confidence in the safety and quality of those products used in those equipments. Moreover, it also helps ensure regulatory compliance, because many jurisdictions do require NSF certifications for any products, greases otherwise, that are used in food service and processing, just to comply with local health and safety regulations. And then quality assurance, so certifications providing assurance that products have been independently tested for performance and safety standards, and essentially allowing for standards and practices in food safety. So these H1 greases, which are essentially food grade lubricants, so lubricants that are suitable for use within food manufacturing type settings, they lubricate in the ways that other sort of industrial grade lubricants would, but they're just essentially proven to be safe for use in machinery and equipment used in food and beverage manufacturing, which would encompass like mixers, mills, grinders, filling equipment, really any sort of machinery that is being used for the manufacturing of food items. Next, we'll take a look at the ISO 21469 Safety of Machinery Certification. And this is essentially just an international standard that specifies the hygiene requirements for formulating lubricants that are used in food processing types of industries. And this standard specifically it's just part of a broader effort to ensure food safety by addressing any potential risks associated with lubricants that come into contact with food. So the scope of this particular standard really applies to all lubricants used in food processing industries, where there is a possibility that the lubricant or that is being used in that component could possibly directly or indirectly come in contact with food products. So essentially, the standard just ensures that the lubricants used are not compromising safety, the food safety, or the quality of the food that's being produced. So there's different types of sort of food grade certifications that exist. One is the Kosher Certification, and essentially these greases have not come into contact with any of the following non-kosher animals or ingredients during the manufacturing of that grease. And the certification process to ensure that you're not coming into contact with any of those non-kosher animals or ingredients would involve an application for that certification, additional testing that are being undergone in the certifying agency's laboratories in order to evaluate the composition, the performance, and the sanitation of that particular lubricant. And then continuous audits as well. So audits of the facility, just to ensure manufacturing processes comply with standards set by that agency. And then once the certification is issued, there's also continued surveillance. So there is an annual audit that needs to take place in order to really ensure ongoing compliance with that certification. So in addition to the kosher product certification, there's also the halal product certification, which essentially is very similar in process. So it ensures compliance with halal requirements, and the sort of application process in doing so and receiving that certification, it's very similar. There is a initial application process that's done, and then a series of testing that's done to ensure that you're meeting the evaluation requirements of that issuing agency, and then audits as well to ensure that the facility producing this particular lubricant is complying with the standards of that agency. And then once the certification is given, there's also a continued sort of surveillance aspect too, where they continuously audit the facility, usually on like an annual basis, to ensure that compliance is still in effect. So next we'll take a look at some customer specifications, or the process rather of customer specifications. So customer specifications and sales specifications, They're essentially just very detailed descriptions and documents just entailing the characteristics and the features and performance requirements of a product. And they play a pretty crucial role in just establishing clear expectations for all parties involved and ensuring that the product being used within a given application for a particular customer is meeting certain criteria upon delivery. So when you look at a customer specification, there's usually performance criteria that are kind of detailed in that document, and they're essentially defined standards that the product must meet, and that could include durability, strength, efficiency, functionality, and this may also include metrics that demonstrate how the product performs under specific conditions. Sometimes there's also quality standards that are indicated within those specifications as well, oftentimes just kind of outlining adherence to different industry standards like ISO certifications, the NSF certifications as well, or other sort of internal quality benchmarks that are set out by that specific customer. There's usually also compliance requirements also that are detailed within those documents, just providing information about the regulatory standards that the product is complying with, such as like safety regulations or different environmental standards as well. So right here you can see a specific customer sales specification that calls out for the use of a very specific product, which in this case is the MOLYKOTE P3700 anti-seize paste, specifically for an application involving gas turbines. So it's specified as essentially a thread lubricant for use on threads on the hot end of gas turbines. So this documentation, and oftentimes many customer specifications of this type, are widely available for reference and distribution. So next we'll look at how to choose lubricants based on a certification. So one, to find out which MOLYKOTE products adhere to specific certifications. That information is readily available through MOLYKOTE. So if you go to the MOLYKOTE website, you could find the different certification links, such as the different NSF grades, the NLGI certifications. Follow those links to see which products specifically in the portfolio comply with those specific certifications. As you can see here, you could also isolate by resource type, and upon clicking the certification box, you could see the different certifications that are available for the broader portfolio as well. So you could see for example, the Halal certification, and it'll list the different MOLYKOTE products that are in compliance with that certification, as well as the hydrogen purity standard. And within that document, you'll also be able to see which particular MOLYKOTE products are in compliance with that specific hydrogen purity standard. So the process of lubricant selection based on certification type doesn't really change. So once you identify which certifications match a given MOLYKOTE product, or once you isolate what certification you need and you see which MOLYKOTE products are available for that certification or comply with that certification, process of selecting a given lubricant from that list doesn't really change. So you're still starting the lubricant selection process by defining your application in terms of the tribological system. So you're determining whether you have a boundary friction type of tribological setting, or a hydrodynamic friction type setting, or mixed friction, and then deciding the product family from there, whether you're choosing a paste or a grease or like a dispersion. So first you just define the application in terms of the tribological system, and then you prioritize the sort of jobs that the lubricant needs to do based on the LETS acronym. So you define your system in terms of the load, the environment, the temperature, and the speed, and you determine which lubricants are best suited to those particular parameters. And then you also define your application in terms of any sort of compatibility requirements, any noise, vibration, or harshness requirements, so sort of haptics that are more common within automotive applications, durability requirements, corrosion-related requirements, and then again, sort of redefine that list of lubricants that are compatible for your application based on those criteria. And then also consider the long-term system reliability as well. From there, you can engage the lubricant subject matter experts in order to help narrow down that list of lubricants that are probably most suitable for a given application, or engage them within current or future design work to understand lubricant selection. And then also sort of understand the lubricants impact on any given system beyond the traditional mechanical systems. So for example, with electrical properties, understand what sort of additional requirements may be needed given the sort of more advanced requirements of an application. For example, if you need a dielectric grease, consider the conductivity and the electrical requirements of that particular grease and the long-term effects it may have on your system. So why are certifications important? So they're important because they essentially help you choose lubricants that are meeting industry or market regulations. So essentially they provide compliance with market and industry standards to ensure that you're choosing lubricants that are safe and suitable for any given sort of application. A good example of this is when considering the food industry. It's a very global industry, so contamination can reach quite global scales. So it's important to consider lubricants that are safe in those applications and are suited for processes where contamination can be more detrimental. For example, in June 2000, there was a food processing company that had to recall many pounds of smoked turkey because of exposure to a non-food grade lubricant. So quite a massive and quite global safety issue. Another example is in November of 2002, there was a soft drink company that was recalled in Australia, also due to lubricant contamination. So it's quite important that in more regulated industry settings, that you're using products that are defined for and compliant with the regulations set out in that particular market. That's all I have.